Okay, hello, folks. I hope you're all doing well on this Friday afternoon. Welcome to the Parents Talk. This is our second session running it this week. So if you didn't catch the first session, then this is the sequel to it. And today is really all about you and everything you need to know when you're preparing your son or daughter for higher education after they leave school, if that's what they want to go on and do. But this will give you a really sort of basic understanding as to what you should know, some of the considerations that you need to give well in advance of your son or daughter actually applying, and what you can do to help guide them make that decision and really help them out and make a good application to university. But before I go on and jump right into the detail, I suppose I just should do a couple of housekeeping rules. So this is a webinar, if you haven't already guessed, and it's interactive as well. So basically what that means is you can ask questions at any time throughout this webinar using the Q&A button, which should be at the bottom of your screen. Now, I won't be answering your questions. I'm joined by my fabulous assistant, Michael, who will be answering those questions in the form of a typed response. So at any point in the presentation, if you have a question, do type it in, and Michael will answer those questions as best as he can. This session should last probably about 35 minutes. I'm cognizant that it is a Friday afternoon and it's absolutely super sunny outside, so I'll do my best to keep this brief but informative. So what we're going to discuss today then is what I think is the fundamentals of preparing for higher education. All the things you need to know well in advance of the January deadline for UCAS. And that's what we're going to start off with talking about is the UCAS application system, what that's all about, and the requirements for it. And I'll take you through a step-by-step guide on that. Then I'll talk about student finance. This is where a lot of parents seem to be a bit confused about the levels of financial packages available and what's out there for you. So take you through that. Then I'll talk about the support that's available at Ulster University. And generally, most universities, the support mechanisms that universities will provide for their students if they have a particular learning issue or disability, and what support's available. Then I'll talk about careers and employability because it's such an important part of higher education. And what I say to students when I'm out in schools is that it typically is the reason why pupils go to university is to get a job. And I'll talk about how we help develop their career prospects. Then I'll briefly touch on scholarships, what's available at Ulster, as well as some of the sporting activities and initiatives that you can get involved, your son or daughter can get involved in when they join us, and the accommodation options at Ulster as well. Then I'll give you some tips as to what you can do and what your son or daughter can do now when they're preparing for higher education after school. And then at the very end, if you have any additional questions that you didn't get asked throughout the webinar, myself and Michael will hopefully address those then. So it should be a good session. So just jumping right into it, some of the learning outcomes will be that by the end of this webinar, you'll have an understanding of the application process. You'll know more about the student finance available, understand the accommodation options, and you'll know what resources are available to support you. So step one, UCAS, infamous to some people, but it really is a simple application process. And once it's explained to you in a forum like this, then it really shouldn't be too confusing for you when you're supporting your child. So a bit about UCAS. So it stands for the Universities and Colleges Admission Service, and fundamentally they help process all applications of course programs to every university in the UK, and that includes yourselves at Ulster University. They help provide information, advice, and training to applicants based on how they should write a personal statement, some of the tips and resources they can use. And they have a fraud and verification team as well for the likes of personal statements to help weed out plagiarism. As they are applying for academic institutions, fraud is taken very seriously, or plagiarism. So it's not a good place to start. What UCAS doesn't do is suggest courses or universities. They'll not help you make a decision. They simply provide the list of courses and universities that are available for you to choose from. They don't make decisions or offers either. So they simply host your application. It'll be the universities themselves to which your son or daughter has applied who will make ultimately those decisions. So UCAS has no insight into that at all. And they also don't advise on any finance issues such as student finance. Again, that's independent to each country in the UK, but I'll touch on that as well. So a couple of numbers there. UCAS get about just under 1 million applicants every year, over 3 million applications. There are 35,000 courses to possibly research. So get your thinking caps on now. And there's over 300 universities and colleges. So there's a wealth of information, and you're not exactly stuck for choice when it comes to deciding where you want to go. That will be your son or daughter's problem, is too much choice. And I'll provide some tips at the end as to how they can refine that choice. So very simply, UCAS, how the application process is all done online, and it's very, very simple. So over at ucas.com/apply, that's where they can create their own application account. This is where they can submit their personal information as well as a personal statement, choose a maximum of 5 choices, be it from the same university or completely different universities. That is unless, of course, if they are applying for any of the medicine, veterinary, or dentistry courses, then you can only choose a maximum of 4 of those same courses. But additionally, you can also apply to the same university. So for example, if your son or daughter was completely committed to coming to Ulster University, they could submit 5 course choices to ourselves, and we'd be absolutely delighted to have them. There is an application cost with applying to UCAS. So for example, for 1 course choice, it's £20, and anything over that up until 5 choices, it's £26. But the school and ourselves, we normally encourage students to make the choices, the 5 choices, because if, for example, they choose 1 choice in the beginning and then they submit their application or before that, any additional choice that they may wish to add on is an additional £6. So it actually works out a better cost of value to make the 5 choices. Plus, it gives you a lot more option and scope that you may need come results day. Equal consideration is given to your application. So basically what that means is your son or daughter will be writing their personal statement to apply to all universities. So they won't have a personal statement to write for each. So there's a bit of not so much a science, but an art in terms of how they write that. They are writing to potentially 5 different universities, and they'll have to demonstrate, I guess, if they have no general preference, that's the case in their personal statement. And there is privacy with submitting an application as well. And basically what that means is a UCAS applicant, whatever universities they apply to, can't see who else your son or daughter has applied to. So there's confidence assured there. If they don't want that to be the case, then it's not so anyway. So some key dates in the UCAS calendar. This is up and coming over the next year or so. And you can really start to apply to UCAS from roughly about the 19th of May 2020. This is when all UCAS applications open for September 2021. By the 15th of October, you need to have applied for any of the medicine, dentistry, or veterinary, or Oxford or Cambridge courses. They have a much earlier deadline, but that's not the case with ourselves at Ulster University. And we have a very simple generic deadline, which is the 15th of January 2021, which is for all of our courses. Then they should begin to receive some offers or decisions on their choices soon after that deadline. But if they don't, then UCAS Extra is available to them, and that basically allows them to choose additional courses should they not receive any decisions on their course choices by then. Then by the 5th of May, your son or daughter will have to, out of the 5 choices or however many they have chosen, rank 2 as their top 2 preferences. And their first preference is known as their conditional firm, and their second preference is known as their conditional insurance. That will be for the majority of all students if they've received all decisions on their selections by the 31st of March. If they haven't and it's a bit later, then the deadline for ranking their top 2 will be later, but we will advise, or UCAS will advise them of that. Then by the 30th of June, that's the last date for any late applications. So the majority of our courses will have closed by then, but they can still submit applications to any courses that have space before clearing opens in July. And then roughly mid-August 2021 will be A-level results day or leaving certificate or BTECs. Roughly mid-August is the qualification results for most qualifications. And then they'll know the status of their application, whether they're in to their chosen course or not. So the application process then is fairly simple. So I've already mentioned that they need to go over to ucas.com/apply to create an account. Once they create an account, they'll be given a personal ID. And they must keep that because that's their personal identifier, unique identifier that they'll need to discuss their application with UCAS or the university after they've created and submitted their application. So there are some required sections that they must complete. So for example, they need to complete personal details, all about them. They shouldn't get that wrong. Any additional information such as any additional needs that they may have, particularly learning disabilities, now's the time on that application form to mention that, so that when we learn of the students who've applied to us and who are definitely coming, we can then make the necessary preparations and provisions to help support them when they enroll. Then they get to pick their choices. Like I say, there's a maximum of 5 there they can choose. They can also enter their education, so what school they're at, what school they previously went to, and any predicted grades that they are expected to get in their qualifications. And that helps the universities make an offer based on their predicted grades. They can also talk about their employment as well. So if they are working part-time, like I did when I was a student at school, either in a shop or a restaurant or a hotel, those are valuable skills for university admissions teams because they demonstrate key competencies such as customer care, such as communication skills, such as independence, and they help bolster your son or daughter's application. Because if on results day the admission team are having to choose between 2 applicants, then the personal statement can really matter. And then finally, the personal statement, which I'll talk about in great detail in a couple of slides time. Then once your son or daughter has completed those sections, then they're required to submit references or referee details. And that's usually done by their teachers or by the schools. And once they provide a character reference, the schools will then send those applications to UCAS. And despite I've already said that the UCAS deadline is the 15th of January, schools normally in Northern Ireland will have all this wrapped up by the 30th or 31st of October. So at Halloween time, they like to get that well out of the way. And then after that, after the 15th of January, or after they've sent the applications in, universities will begin to make decisions based on the information your son or daughter has provided. So it's a fairly simple application process. It looks convoluted, but once you break it down, it's really not. This is what UCAS looks like itself. So a UCAS account. So on the left-hand side, you can see an image of like the welcome screen that your son or daughter will see when they log into their account. We've blanked out the personal ID here for obvious reasons. But as you can see, all the sections on the left-hand side are yet to be completed. On the right-hand side, you can see then how your son or daughter can begin to browse courses. And this is really just, it doesn't give you any additional information about the courses other than the ability to select them. So all the research will be done at an individual university website level. But once your son or daughter has done that, then they can begin selecting the courses that they've seen through UCAS. So on to the personal statement then. This is probably one of the biggest parts of the application process, and probably one of the most daunting parts. And it's because probably the fact that your son or daughter has most control over it. All the power and the work is down to them to create it or write it. But really it's an opportunity for your son or daughter to sell themselves, to make themselves stand out. Because we receive over 35,000 applications to Ulster University courses alone, and on paper, based on grades, some of those students could be the same, but some of the extracurricular activities that they might do can really enhance their personal statement and their application. So as I previously said, the same personal statement is used for all your choices. So there's a bit of an art in terms of trying to make that fit around each of the courses that your son or daughter will have applied to. And that's much easier done when they have applied to courses that are very similar. So for example, biomedical science or biology or health sciences, all roughly within the same sphere of health sciences. But when you're applying for a broad range of different courses like fine art or history, and then English, and then personalized medicine, then it's a bit harder to justify why you've chosen such a broad selection. But that's not to say you can't do that. You absolutely can, and UCAS give you the ability to do that. But in terms of writing the personal statement, it's slightly more difficult. So you need to have a clear vision as to why you're applying for those courses. So the personal statement itself, it's a maximum of 4,000 characters, roughly about an A4 page or 47 lines, but it needs to be a minimum of 1,000 characters. So that's your scope. And it's up to your son or daughter to exercise their own judgment as to how succinct or comprehensive they wish to be. There isn't a spelling or grammar check on UCAS, so be wary of that. Words that are spelt correctly on your son or daughter's personal statement may not be grammatically correct. So we always recommend them to use a word processing piece of software like Microsoft Word to help with that. And we also recommend that they get as many eyes cast over it as possible so that everything reads correctly. So what should be included in the personal statement then? Well, there's a number of different things that you can include. They're not certainly requirements. There's no one perfect personal statement. It should really just be an accurate reflection of your son or daughter. So some of the things that can be talked about in a personal statement is your academic achievements. So particular grades that might have been achieved at GCSEs, predicted grades, why they're interested in that particular subject area. Passion and enthusiasm obviously comes into play and is judged as really important by admissions teams, particularly for competitive courses. Your knowledge about that subject area, your enthusiasm to go beyond the syllabus. So do you like that course for more than just of what you're taught in the classroom? Do you actually go out and spend your own spare time browsing different pieces of literature or watching videos or going to museums to learn more about that particular subject? All that is valuable currency in a personal statement. And details of your independent study skills as well. It's really an opportunity for your son or daughter to sell themselves. So in terms of decision making then, once they've submitted their application process, the universities and colleges will review everything from the personal statement to the predicted grades and qualifications, as well as the character references. But in addition to that, the work may not be over just then. Your son or daughter, depending on the course that they're applying for, may have to sit an additional admissions test or an interview or submit a portfolio or perform an audition for courses like music or art and so on and so forth. But I'll talk about that in detail. So when it comes to receiving a decision or an offer, there's three potentials here for your son or daughter. The first one is to get an unconditional offer. And basically what that means is that your son or daughter no longer needs to meet any further conditions at school. Basically, they have received an automatic place on the course. Now, they can reject that, but it simply means they don't have to meet a particular grade. Conditional offers, however, do the opposite. It means that they do have an offer for the place, provided that they meet the required grades of the course that they're applying for. So for example, our course Law at McGee, which is 3 Bs, a conditional offer for it would require your son or daughter to achieve 3 Bs at A level or equivalent qualification to be placed on that course. Or if they're unsuccessful, then they'll get a withdrawn or decline status. So those are the 3 options. So in terms of keeping up to date with the status of your application, where do I get information? Where do I hear back from universities? It's all on UCAS. Universities won't communicate with your son or daughter directly. They will do it through UCAS Track. And as you can see, the user interface, the account website is the image there on the right. And this is where you will begin to receive information on your offers. Once you've received all decisions back from universities, you're then required to rank 2 of your preferences. So your first preference, which is your firm acceptance, or your second preference is your insurance. Your firm acceptance just means that's your first preference, and your second is your backup. And then you must decline any remaining offers. And that's to let universities know that you've no intention of going to that university. So UCAS Track is the place to track any further developments in your application. So other key dates then, I did mention Extra a while ago, and this is open from the 25th of February to the 4th of July. And the requirements here is that none of the universities have gotten back to you, but you've used all 5 choices. Okay, so you've heard nothing, or you've been declined. And this allows your son or daughter to add further choices, further course choices to allow them, greater ability to actually get a place on a course. Then after that is the clearing process, which is if your son or daughter has applied after the 30th of June, they've received no offers, or they've declined all offers, or simply not met the conditions. And then this is where they can find remaining vacancies on courses that are still yet to be filled. So there's plenty of scope and plenty of opportunity from the original application to still get a place at university. So how do we make offers then? Well, some of the considerations that we give is, of course, the personal statement, which is used for all courses. It's particularly relied upon for the likes of social work and nursing, but we do look at it for every course. We do use interviews for courses like nursing, social work, art and design, arts, if we want further information. So for example, for nursing, we will test your son or daughter's ability to demonstrate empathy or key skills within the nursing field. A portfolio obviously is used to determine your son or daughter's ability to visually communicate, and those are used for courses such as art and design or architecture. And then the HPAT, also known as the Health Professions Aptitude Test, is an additional admissions test which your son or daughter must sit if they are applying to any of the allied health professions. So as you can see, if your son or daughter is applying to any of the following: dietetics, occupational therapy, physiotherapy, radiography, radiology, or speech and language therapy, they must sit the Health Professions Admissions Test. That test takes place well in advance of your son or daughter's A-levels or leaving certificate or BTECs, and it lasts about 3 hours. And what we are looking for in that test is demonstrations of interpersonal understanding, critical reasoning, and written communication, key things and key skills that are used within the health professions field. There are scenario-based questions there as well, but we offer a range of practice tests, or rather HPAT, the independent organization who runs the admissions test, offers practice sessions, offers sample questions to help your son or daughter prepare as best they can. And in addition to that, if you don't already know, the courses that you see on the screen are completely funded. I think we are the only university ourselves in Queen's that still have funded health courses in the UK or Ireland, and so there's no tuition fees whatsoever, and that's because it's funded by the Department for Health. So what happens then on results day? So you've got the notification of how well your son or daughter has done. Hopefully they've done and got whatever they wanted. But you don't need to worry about letting us know about your son or daughter's results. We'll be informed pretty much immediately as they come in from UCAS. They inform us. Whilst you're checking your results, we're also making sure that they meet the conditions of the offer. If you've met or exceeded the conditions of your offer, we have to accept you, okay? If you have exceeded the conditions of your offer, you have a greater scope. So that means you can either stick with the offer that you've had, or you can enter yourself into something that's called adjustment. And that means that your son or daughter will be able to shop around again for other courses that are now at the level of the grade that they've achieved. So if they were initially predicted for 3Bs and they applied for courses which were 3Bs, and it turns out to get 3A stars, then they can shop around for courses at that level. So give them greater scope. If you don't meet the conditions of your offer at all, don't panic. There is still opportunity for you to get into that course, depending on whether or not it fills up. And alternatively, if we can't offer you that course, then we will do our best to make you an offer for a similar course, but at the level and results that your son or daughter has actually achieved. So that's pretty much an overview of UCAS. I realize that it can be overwhelming if you're new to it, but I will send out this presentation at the very end so you can go over it and refresh yourselves with it as the weeks and months fly on. So now I want to talk about student finance. So how much does it cost to go to university here in Northern Ireland? So the tuition fees for all undergraduate programs at Ulster University and all courses in Northern Ireland are £4,275 per year. Now you don't have to pay this up front. The vast majority of students apply to something called student finance, who pays the tuition fees directly to the university. And your son or daughter only have to pay that back after they're earning roughly about £18,330. All Northern Ireland and Republic of Ireland students can avail of student finance NI. And there's a bit of a benefit to ensuring that they're not paying for something that they're not getting the benefit of. So i.e. they only pay if they earn a professional graduate salary. So it's an insurance policy. So applying for student finance then, there are various student finance packages available. So they can get loans, grants, or various kinds of allowances depending on their personal circumstances and household income. One application will determine your eligibility. So you don't need to apply separately to a tuition fee loan and then another application form for a maintenance grant. It's the one form. And that one form for Northern Ireland students or Northern Ireland applicants is called a PN1 form. And that's the form you can see on the right-hand side. That's available digitally on the Student Finance website. And for Republic of Ireland students, it's a slightly different form. It's called an EU20N form. But both those forms can be found on the Student Finance NI website. So like I said, types of finance can include the likes of tuition fee costs as well as living costs. But in addition to that, if you have any particular needs or dependents, such as childcare or disability, then there is funding and finance available there too. How much and what type will be confirmed in what's called a notification of entitlement letter. So after you've submitted this application, a few weeks later, you'll get this letter back telling you exactly what you're entitled to. So just in terms of the different packages, the loans, both the tuition fee and the maintenance loan, are repayable. That's why they're called loans. But your son or daughter, as I've already said, doesn't have to pay that back until they're earning professional graduate salary. Grants, on the other hand, don't have to be repaid at all. They're totally awarded to your son or daughter, and they don't have to worry about paying it back. Unless, of course, if student finance make a mistake by overpaying your son or daughter, or if your son or daughter goes to university, receives the grant, and then decides, you know what, university ain't for me, I'm gonna go and do something else, then they'll have to repay it back. The student loan is only repaid again once they're earning over a professional graduate salary, and the breakdown is there. What they pay back per month is broken down to 9% of your son or daughter's income over the threshold. So it's a very affordable loan, and it's probably the most affordable loan that your son or daughter will ever get in their adult life. So the maintenance loan, then you can see that the various kinds of packages that they can get dependent on their circumstances. So if they are living with parents outside of London, the maximum available is £3,750. So depending on your personal circumstances, that will dictate how much of a maintenance loan your son or daughter can get. At this point, anything to do with maintenance, Republic of Ireland students can't apply through Student Finance NI. They should apply through SUSI, which is the Republic of Ireland system, and they can transfer any maintenance awards that they may be eligible for in the Republic to the North to ensure that they're continued to be financially supported. The maintenance grant, however, is again non-repayable, and the maximum available is £3,475. Again, this is only for Northern Ireland students. It's designed to help with day-to-day costs like the maintenance loan, to pay for bills, for accommodation, for cost of living, all that stuff that isn't catered for in the tuition fee loan. And it's only available, the maintenance grant, however, is only available if your household income is below £41,540. So that's something you need to give consideration to as well. So how to apply? So all applications, both if you're a Republic of Ireland student or a Northern Ireland student, is done online at studentfinanceni.co.uk. And we recommend that you apply by the 31st of May to make sure that the finance is in place, that your application has been processed in time, because it can take up to 6 weeks to do so. And we want to make sure that your son or daughter isn't beginning university with no money in their bank account or no way to pay for their tuition fee loan. So do that as soon as you are confident that your son or daughter will be going to university. So student support then. So obviously going to university is a big deal for students, and your son or daughter may not be maybe the first person in their family to go to university, and maybe unaware of how to settle in or how to make friends. Our student support services help our students, particularly our new students, do just that by supporting them and providing a range of different services that will help them fit in and feel supported whilst at Ulster University. How we do that, we've got a range of services such as counselling, if they want to talk to somebody, if they experience an issue on any personal or wellbeing matter. We also have advice services on student money, how to budget student money, because if they're receiving a maintenance loan or a maintenance grant, it's likely probably to be the largest amount of money in their bank account that they've ever had in their life. So we want to make sure that they are budgeting that appropriately and give them best practices as to how to do that. There's also needs assessment centre as well. So if your son or daughter has a suspected learning issue, such as dyslexia, we can test for that and put in place additional measures that will support them whilst they're studying with us, such as additional time in exam situations. And we're really proud to say that we run a fantastic Mind Your Mood campaign every year, because increasingly across the UK and in Europe in general, mental health is becoming an issue at universities. And Ulster University, we recognise that. We recognise it's an important issue for students. So every year, unfortunately not this year, given current circumstances, we fundraise money for mental health services by inviting staff and students to run the Belfast City Marathon together. And roughly every year we raise about £35,000, which goes back into supporting our students. So on to employability then, and again, I think this is the key reason why a lot of students go to university. University, in my opinion, and it has been researched actually, is probably the quickest way to get a professional graduate salary than other modes of learning. And at Ulster, we're really proud to say that 94% of our own graduates enter professional employment or some kind of further study, such as a master's degree, within 6 months of leaving the university. And specifically not any kind of employment, but graduate employment. So those jobs that have a starting salary of about £19,000 per year, they're entering into those jobs. And we're number one university in Northern Ireland for that. So really proud to say that. Part of the reason why we're number one is because a lot of our courses have professional accreditation. So what that means is independent organisations such as the Chartered Institute of Marketing, such as the Chartered Institute of Public Relations, the Engineering Council, they take a look at the courses that we offer and related to their own subject area, they put the seal of approval on those courses by accrediting them, meaning that the teaching taught on those courses meets that industry level standard. So it's much easier for your son or daughter to get a job with the likes of professional accreditation because it's recognized in industry by employers. And it's testament to the fact also our professional accreditations that we offer 2,000 work industry placements every year. And these are opportunities for your son or daughter to take a year out from their studies and actually work from one of our partner organizations who will pay them a professional salary and who will develop the foundational skills that they need to succeed after they graduate. And likely what ends up happening in a lot of the circumstances is that our graduates our students will actually be offered a job by that employer that they've worked with for a year after they've graduated. So it means that that year's experience has benefited them so much that by the time they graduate on day one of the day they've left the university, they're entering into professional graduate employment. And it's so important these days in a world that's saturated with new graduates coming through every year. So as I said, it makes students highly employable, and they actually get an additional qualification for completing a work industry placement known as a Diploma of Professional Practice. And that should be important because almost 60% of graduate employers will be unlikely to recruit a graduate with no work experience whatsoever. So that's why we emphasize to our students, take the opportunity, take the year out and go work with one of our employers because it will benefit you in the long run. Other ways we help support your son or daughter's career aspiration is through our Career Development Centre. And this is where a central hub where we can offer them advice and guidance based on CV development and other modules that we can give them to help add to the, their accolades that they have. We also offer opportunities for students to meet employers in the field by organising recruitment and careers events where they can talk to employers, talk about what they're looking for in candidates and get interview advice as well. And there's loads of other opportunities available for your son or daughter to make sure that by the time they graduate, they have added as much value as possible, as opposed to just going to the lectures and getting the first class honours. That's great and that's well done. But nowadays, employers are looking for much more than just a degree. They're looking for these additional skills that add value to your son or daughter as a candidate. And that's evidenced year on year in the labour market survey in Northern Ireland. And in case you're wondering what the top 10 growth sectors are over the next 10 years, according to the Department for the Economy, in ranked order, you can see there that a lot of STEM and engineering subjects are up there. But there's a whole host of different growth areas that will be in expansion over the next 10 years. And interestingly, this is kind of what Ulster University bases the courses that we offer on. You'll not really find a course at Ulster University that doesn't fit one of these growth sectors. We only offer courses that are economically viable or economically relevant to ensure that your son or daughter has the best chances of getting employment after they graduate. So now on to scholarships then, and very briefly, we do have a number of scholarships that your son or daughter can apply to. Usually they are based on high achievement, so based on how well they do at A-level or GCSE or in a particular subject area, or to support those students with greater need. So for example, if they come from a widening access and participation background, then there are loads of scholarships to help support them and help them access higher education. Definitely take a look at them because they are quite substantial in the amount of funding that they offer. So do give consideration to it. So sport at Ulster University. So this is now away from the process and the student finance. We're now taking a look at the fun things you can actually do whilst you're at university. And sport is one way of keeping connected during your son or daughter's studies. So we have run this fantastic scholarship called the Talented Athlete Scholarship. And as well as the number of sports clubs that they can just get involved with, if they are currently active or engaged in sport now, be it at school or outside of school, either competitively or socially, they can apply for the Talented Athlete Scholarship, which basically offers them through the scholarship a 2-grade reduction on any course that they have applied to. So again, going back to the likes of I don't know, graphic design and illustration at the Belfast campus, 3 Bs. If they're engaged in some kind of sport, we'll kick 2 of those Bs off and we'll only ask for a B and 2 Cs. In addition to that, we offer almost £500 worth of sports services, and that includes everything from physiotherapy sessions, hydrotherapy sessions, pastoral support, mentoring support, but most importantly, leniency in their ability to be absent from class and in their exam performance, because as a talented athlete, they're sacrificing a tremendous amount of time to actually go and compete and win silverware for the university. So we have to find some way of recognizing that and giving back to them. So definitely consider that if your son or daughter is actively or currently engaged in sport. And in terms of sports facilities that we offer at Ulster University, they are state-of-the-art. For example, at our Coleraine campus, we recently opened a £5 million sports complex, which was opened by our Chancellor. And there's opportunities to get involved at every level, whether it is you want to join our gyms or simply go to some of our yoga classes and other methods of exercise. There's the opportunity to do that. And also we proudly host currently at our Jordanstown campus the Sports Institute of Northern Ireland, where many athletes such as Paddy Barnes, and I've seen Michael Conlon in the changing rooms out there before they go and train using those facilities. So it is recognised as a centre of sporting excellence. So accommodation then is another consideration that you want to start thinking about, not necessarily now, but certainly once your son or daughter has applied. And at Ulster University, we offer high quality but affordable accommodation provision with a range of different amenities and utilities. You can see there the level of services that we make available for accommodation residents at Ulster University. So included within the accommodation cost, they get everything from Wi-Fi, car parking, 24/7 security, 24/7 maintenance. So for example, if they come home and the pipe bursts, they don't have to wait a week for their landlord to come out. There's an on-site maintenance team. It's a great opportunity for students to actually meet other students, especially in their first year, because sometimes when students private rent, they experience all these different issues and they don't know where to turn. So we definitely suggest that for their first year at least. And we've been recognized actually recently as having the best booking experience, or a finalist or a runner-up rather, as having the best booking experience and the best move-in experience for students moving into accommodation facilities, as we certainly give them a warm welcome. And all that starts from about £85 per week. Applying for accommodation, it's not something you need to be too familiar with right now, but the timeline of which you just need to know that as soon as you've applied to university, and by May 2021, the application portal is open and your son or daughter can then begin to apply. If they have made us their conditional firm offer and they apply by the 7th of July, we will guarantee them a room or a place in our university accommodation. So what can you and your son or daughter do now to kickstart the information process and information gathering process and ensuring that your son or daughter will make the right choice? Well, you've already started it by the very fact that you've attended this webinar, and you're doing that research now and giving consideration to everything I've spoken about. But what your son or daughter will want to do over the next 6 months or so is to research as many courses as they can, trying to find an area for them which they want to go into. And at this point, it may be quite broad. For example, they may know that they want to go into some kind of engineering area, but they don't really know which. Looking at courses and looking at career pathways that come out of those courses are a great way to refine down your criteria and ensure you're being as specific as possible with your course options. So what we don't want to see, and what's not helpful, is sometimes applicants pick courses because they sound great, because they have a great snazzy title, but actually when they enroll on the course, they realize that's not what they thought it was about, and that's because they judged the book by its cover, basically. So they want to do as much research as possible into those courses. They also want to take a look at the extracurricular activities that are available at a particular university. So, for example, are there great sports clubs and societies to get involved in? Is the Students' Union a centre of a social activity for me? Will I find it easy to make friends? And as well, and I think importantly, looking at work experience as well. What placement programs and what professional accreditation is available with that particular course? Is it likely to enhance my CV? Is it likely to improve my chances of working overseas or getting work industry placement? Those are all important considerations and key questions that you want to be asking over the next few months. So obviously, as I've already spoken about, you want to choose the right course, and I'll not go over that again. How you can kickstart the process in terms of researching courses, certainly at Ulster University, and I suppose like any good university, is by looking on their website. It's where the majority of the information and most up-to-date information will lie. And at Ulster University, we have a really friendly, and if you're familiar with Google, search bar facility where you can begin searching for courses based on keywords, and it'll give you all key information such as the campus that it's studying at, whether it will move campus, and what the careers opportunities are available for that, what the entry requirements are for that, and whether there's any specific subject criteria that they need to meet. So do utilize that facility. So I'm coming towards the end of the webinar now. There are additional webinars available over the next couple of weeks, and hopefully you've caught a few of them so far. Do try and keep track of them, because there's some fantastic ones that are subject specific. There are ones there about how to write the perfect personal statement. So do keep a track of those, and we'll be on here keeping you informed as much as possible. And also we do have open days coming up, hopefully in person this September. We are working on the basis that that's the case, that we will be physically hosting open days across all 4 of our campuses. And so you can find all of our open days dates there on our current open days website. Currently, there are only the school dates for those open days. So this is where schools will have the opportunity to register students to go to a particular campus. But we will be adding family days as well, which will take place on the next day of each campus open day, so this Saturday. So for example, the family day at McGee will be on Saturday the 19th of September. And this is where you and your family can come along and go to as many family days as possible and get a sense of what the campus and what the course is like. So that brings me to the end of the presentation. You can get in touch with us if you have any further questions, either by contacting our admissions team if you have a specific question about a qualification your son or daughter is doing, or if you have any general course inquiries, you can contact our good selves, the student recruitment team at study@ulster.ac.uk. Or if you want to talk to a real life student, you can go on our website and they'll all automatically pop up in what's called our UniBuddy system, and you can live chat with them and ask them questions. So for now, that's the end of the presentation. I'm not sure how I did in terms of 35 minutes. That might have been 45, so apologies, I've been over. But if anybody has any additional questions that you didn't get answered throughout the session, I know Michael has been answering most of your questions there. Now is the time to do so. I'll be hanging on here for another 5-10 minutes if you do have further questions. So using the chat facility or the Q&A facility, do take advantage of that. So I hope that was helpful anyway. If you want to get in touch with us, do so afterwards, and I will send this presentation out to you. Hopefully it's been a helpful resource, and we hope to hear and see you soon at our open days. But until then, take care, stay safe, and have a great weekend. Cheers. Yeah, so I've just seen the question there regarding you have twins. How does that work with the maintenance loan? Will you get less money? It shouldn't be the case. Your son or daughter won't be impacted by the fact they have a twin brother or sister. It's an individual application, so you shouldn't get or they shouldn't get any less of a maintenance loan just because that's the case. If Michael wishes to, if he knows any further about that, he can answer that. I think he has answered that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Conan, there was just a good resource there on student finance NI. So just sent on a PDF there what will contain all the information about that grant.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Michael, for that. If there's any further questions, we're still here. Do fire them through. Otherwise, get out and enjoy that sun. You're very welcome. I'm glad you found that was informative. I hope that was, yeah, very useful indeed. So take care, everybody.